The Lifestyle Show, presented by Selena Mackenzie.
Now, Bear Grylls has called this book an essential and inspirational guide to surviving and thriving, whatever life throws at you. The book is called The Mindful Soldier, and author Ash Alexander Cooper joins us now. Welcome to the show, Ash.
Thank you very much.
So the full title is The Mindful Soldier, Building Resilience to Overcome Life's Challenges. So where did this all come from for you?
Being brutally honest, I didn't really mean to write a book. I'm an accidental author at best. But in my life, both personally and professionally, I've come through a number of traumatic sort of episodes or incidents, and friends and family and colleagues and clients even said, you've got to write some of this stuff down. So I was ground down over the years with a bit of bullying from Bear and others to actually commit pen to paper, with the hope that if I did do it, that it might help other people who may be going through similar or different challenges. But I think given the world that we live in today, who doesn't need a little bit more resilience in their lives? So that was really the genesis of it. It was to try and write something that would be both motivational, inspirational, hopefully entertaining, but also useful and helpful to people who want to understand what resilience is all about and how we can build it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there are a lot of professional psychologists, psychotherapists that can help people. But I think really understanding it and going through something yourself is the best way to help somebody else.
Yeah, so we wanted to make this the real lived experience. So they are my experiences, but genuinely the book is not about me. I just use the examples as vehicles to talk about different types of trauma, whether it's, embracing uncertainty, imposter syndrome, fear of failure, relationship breakdowns, loss, or even childhood trauma, and many things in between. So I write my piece, and then I've got a friend who's a world-renowned neuropsychologist, Dr. Jess Miller, and she kind of takes my ramblings and translates them into very easy to understand tips and techniques and explanations about what actually is going on in the brain when we face different types of traumatic or stressful incidents in our lives. What's happening that causes it to be hard to understand or get over in the moment? And then we provide some, as I said, practical exercises that everybody could do daily when they encounter any of these kinds of things.
May I ask, Ash, as you are, you're a former soldier, is it PTSD you were suffering from?
I honestly, I don't have PTSD from my military service per se. And this is why it's such an interesting topic for me to have had to think about, actually. My kind of traumatic life, I suppose, started as a child. And what I've learned in the course of writing the book and chatting with Jess extensively is that everyone's sort of tolerance of trauma or ability to cope with stress and these different kinds of external inputs is cumulative over time. So the fact that I was probably more able to get through my military career, and I've been shot twice, I've been blown up a couple of times, had a couple of helicopter crashes, a suicide bomber tried to kill me on my birthday once, and I've lost more than 60 friends and colleagues killed in action and many more wounded. Those incidents, the fact that I was able to get through them relatively unscathed, although I am technically disabled now, but mentally sort of get through them, I think is partly because of my exposure at an earlier age, actually, and my ability to tolerate those kinds of traumatic things. But this is the challenge, that anybody who's never really struggled in life or had a hard thing to get through will have less resilience to rely on, or your bank account of resilience is only credited once you've got through something hard. And that's why it's frustrating for so many people that we all want to be resilient, but you have to do hard things or go through hard things to build up that credit.
Yeah, I think you're right. And trauma is such a huge word, isn't it? I mean, it's like grief. You think of somebody that's grieving and you think that a loved one's died, but you can grieve the fact that you can't have a baby, or you can grieve when you're going through a divorce. Trauma is the same. It's such a huge subject.
And it's all relative. What may be extremely distressing and hard to get through for one person may be something for someone else that is just, pretty minor. I mean, as I said, I've had some fairly extreme experiences, professional and personal, and what I consider to be really tough, is very different from what someone else may consider tough, or what I consider to be, just another thing in life, may be huge for somebody. So that's the trouble. Everyone's brains are clearly very different, and that's why we want this to be a useful book, that everybody can better understand why things are hard.
Yeah. So what sort of practical skills do you offer then, and techniques, I guess?
Well, I don't want to be a plot spoiler and give them all away because people should go and buy the book. But I mean, some of them are really, really simple. There's one exercise called stop, where you just literally stop, take a breath, observe, and then proceed, hence the mnemonic stop. And that could be as simple as, you're suddenly faced with something, or you have that fight or flight when you see something that maybe you're getting angry about and you want to take action. And just having that sort of, back in the 80s, I think we call it a condor moment. Remember those adverts where you just sort of have a breath, feel yourself rooted to the spot before you then do the thing. And already some of the feedback I've had, there was somebody who reached out that they saw the person that their partner had left them for, and they wanted to effectively attack them in the hospital. And they just said, no, I've just read the book. I'm going to stop. I'm going to have a breath. And they said that was, really useful in that moment, just to remember that you don't have to react in the way that your brain might try and suggest you should do it in the moment. So there's lots of really easy exercises that any of us can do. You just have to remember, that they exist, and these things can make a difference.
Yeah, I have to wait longer than a moment, because I learned through speaking to somebody very much like you that you mustn't react straight away. If I get an email during, something to do with work or personal, I get an email or a message and I'm upset, I will react straight away, and then I'll think, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I have to wait 24 hours before I've calmed down and then do it.
I was chatting to a colleague even this week, and we were talking about something that he wanted to respond, and he said, I'm just going to give it the weekend test. It came in late on a Friday. And he said, just let it settle over the weekend. And then if I still feel the same way on Monday, then I'll send the email. But, we can all do that better, I think. But the way that the world is and how fast people expect responses to emails or texts, you feel obliged to respond immediately, but that's not necessarily always the best thing to do.
Yeah. And it does make a difference. If I wait till the next day and I think to myself, oh yeah, well, I really don't need to react how I was going to react. It does, you do change. I suppose, like you say, it's fight or flight.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where Jess's inputs into the book are so important, because it just explains, whether it's chemically or just that fight or flight response, what is happening in the brain. It can't do two things at once in the moment. We want this to be really helpful. And again, the only reason I wrote the book was to help others. And that's why I'm donating 100% of any author profits, assuming there'll be lots, to veterans charities, in the hope that we may help more people, because this is not about me. I only agreed to do this if it was going to help as many people as I can.
That's wonderful. Well done. Well, I will certainly be going to buy it now. Do you offer anything practical? I'm just thinking about things that I've learned from people I've interviewed, like the elastic band. You put elastic band on your wrist, and if you're feeling nervous or anxious, you can just sort of flick it, and it takes your mind off what you're feeling anxious about.
I mean, we don't reference that specific exercise in the book, but there's many other things like that just very simply, just something to make you sort of take away the heat of the moment. Yeah, there's definitely a lot in there that will be useful for people.
And do you think a lot of I think you said that it's made you more resilient, things that have happened in childhood, but childhood trauma certainly does come out in a lot of people when they're adults, doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And it's affected and impacted me in a different way than I perhaps was conscious of until relatively recently, or when I wrote the book. There was, through a fairly unstable, unpleasant, abusive childhood of drinking and sort of stuff going on. There was always a risk that everything was going to be taken away, that our whole lives would just implode, and our toys, our friends, our schools, everything would be changed. And therefore, there was this sort of urgency that you just had to get as much done as you could, and because it might not be there tomorrow. And that definitely, I think, is translated into my adult life, which I know can be quite exhausting for both my family and my colleagues, that I feel this urgency to do more and do more things at the same time. I'm not very good at sitting still or spinning just one plate. I always have multiple plates, because I just feel like I want to just do more to help people and make a difference. And that comes with its own pressures, generally self-induced, but I try and make it a positive thing if I can. Well, I think it's a good idea, because if you've got a platform, which you have, you want something good to come out of something bad, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. And part of the reason, and I hope 99.9% of people who read the book will think, wow, that's quite extreme and that's never going to happen to me. I very much hope that nobody who reads the book has been shot or will be shot. And if nothing else, hopefully my experiences and the telling of them will put things in perspective, and people can look and say, well, if he managed to get through these things and that's how he did, then there's hope for me too. And some of the feedback we've had already, I've had a suicidal veteran who literally was planning, weeks ago to have followed through and now says he's looking to the future with hope. I've had mothers who've picked it up when their children have put it down and they found it helpful, who've just either lost a partner. Young people who are starting their first job who are really anxious about, are they going to be good enough? I mean, it's connecting with people in really different ways, which is lovely to hear. And I'm really, feeling very humbled by the feedback we're getting from so many different types of people. And I hope that continues.
It must be very rewarding for you.
Yeah, if it helps, I mean, it's fairly easy to say, if it helps one person, it'll be worth it. But every one person, every day, we're getting more of those one person, sort of bits of feedback, and cumulatively, it's making a huge difference. And I said it's extremely humbling that something that was started kind of by accident. Like I said, I didn't plan to write a book, is now making a difference for those who bought it. And it seems to be going up the charts. And as I said, every sale is going to help the charities that we really are keen to allow them to do more to help those in need.
And as you say as well, everything's relative. I mean, you've got a suicidal veteran and then you've got young people who are nervous about their job. I mean, your particular anxiousness or trauma or whatever, depression is personal to you, and it's not less than somebody else that's been through, all the things that you've been through. Yeah, absolutely.
And as I said in an interview the other day, that just about everything that we face in life has happened before. It will feel very personal and you may feel completely alone and you're the only one who understands. But what we try and do at the end is really talk more about the community. You have a community of listeners in Spain and beyond, in Europe, and veterans have military communities, and whether it's a reading group or a sewing group or a band or a sports team, leveraging the power of community can be so positive. And it's just knowing where to go and not, being less afraid to ask, honestly. I'm terrible at asking for help or talking about things, or have been in the past. And what I've learned is that you don't necessarily have to be that close to somebody to make a massive difference to them. I had a colleague, or rather a client recently, who lost their teenage son out of the blue, completely a shock. And they found, as I see a lot with the folks I speak to, that the people closest to them, family and friends, avoided them because they didn't know what to say. They were so worried about saying the wrong thing. And that in itself made them feel even more isolated and alone as they were grieving. So I reached out and shared the book, and now we've become pretty close because they were able to open up and share how they were feeling. And that's made a positive difference. So it will always feel, when you're going through something really tough, that you may be really alone, but genuinely you're not. And it's just finding avenues that can help you.
Yeah. And when you say clients, Ash, as well as being an author and obviously a speaker about this, do you see people to help people?
No, not in the capacity of a therapist or a counsellor. No, just in my day job. I run an international airspace security business doing counter-drone technology, and I advise a bunch of other technical startups and have various ambassadorial roles with charities. So I meet a very diverse group of people globally. I'm off to Singapore on Sunday, and then Saudi Arabia and UAE. So I travel a lot. I spend most of my time on airplanes, which was amusing in itself, actually, when my publisher was saying we should do a signing in your local bookshop. Where is that? And I said, it's probably Terminal 2 or Terminal 3, to be honest. So we are actually looking to try and see if we could do something this weekend at either Heathrow Terminal something or when I'm in Singapore or Dubai, duty free, because I spend more time there than I do in my local bookshop.
Wonderful. Well, you certainly do wear many hats, because you're also a world championship athlete and an international musician.
Well, that was a long, long time ago. That's yeah.
That was
if you want to know more, you
life.
Can read about it. Another life. Yeah.
Yes, we will be reading about it. And one more thing, congratulations. You have an OBE.
Well, yeah, that was for other people's work. I just had a really great team, and it was after a lot of time in Afghanistan, and and that was really for other people's efforts. But yeah, I'm very glad to have been awarded or nominated or appointed by the Queen, which was nice.
Oh, you're very, very humble. Well, I want everyone to go out and buy The Mindful Soldier, Building Resilience to Overcome Life's Challenges. It's by Ash Alexander Cooper, who we're chatting to now. And as he said, 100% of the profits go to veterans charities. Do you have any sort of website or social media if people want to find out more?
Yeah, you can find me on all the channels. Ash Alex Cooper is my handle, and through Royal British Veterans Enterprise is one of the main charities I'm supporting, and also the Gurkha Welfare Trust. So if you follow any of those folks, then you'll keep up with the news as it progresses. But I appreciate any follows, and please go out and buy the book.
Marvellous. Well, keep up the good work, Ash, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.